This is Sam Albright with an AVNation special celebrating International Women's Day the entire month of March. With me today is Rebecca Meier from AVI SPL. Welcome, ma'am.
Welcome. Hello.
Tell folks before we get started, kind of what you do with AVI SPL. It's a pretty good sized company, so depending on where you are geographically, and you might have different interactions with Rebecca.
Yeah. So my official title is National Strategic Alliance Director for Corporate Real Estate, and I specifically manage the JLL Synergy program. The JLL Corporate Real Estate, the big giant. So I manage a program on a global basis, where we try to go in after the broker sells the property. The intention is for the likes of us to do the design build and then to execute the project. Very
cool. Yeah, that's got to be very interesting, especially on the global scale. JLL is quite sizable. Absolutely. One of the overarching questions that 90% of us in the industry will ask each other at some point in time is how you got involved in the industry. How'd you get into this crazy business? And there are answers as far as wide as I used to be in a rock band to, I fell into it. So Rebecca, from that aspect, how did you get involved in the AV industry?
I actually came up from the networking side. Actually got into it about 25 years ago. It dates me. I was selling routers and switches. If you're familiar with Cisco, I was the token ring side of the business with Bay Networks and whatnot. And then there was Cisco, but that's how I got into it, was selling the network piece of it.
Oh, very cool. That actually has to be an interesting side, because as more and more things get put on the network, you've got that experience and that expertise that some folks still in the industry don't have. So absolutely.
Yeah. So it was actually, my motto was build it and it'll come.
And it did. All right. So one of the things, and you came again 20, 25 years ago selling, the network and then coming into AV. Talk for a second about some of your experiences and some of those challenges, being a woman, both in IT, but now also being a woman in AV. What were some of those challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. So I got into the business managing the office level, and and then I pretty much found myself taking care of the demonstration products, the sales calls and whatnot. And so I learned that at an early age that I was seeing my counterparts, the salespeople, making upwards of 150,000, and I came into the business making only 25,000, which was a big difference right there. And then in 3 years, I kept saying, I can do this job, because I was actually taking care of everything on the back end, and it's like I can do this on the front end as well. So when I approached management to ask if I could do it, they pretty much said, "Well, no, you're a woman, or you're a mom." And it was astounding to me. That was like 20 some years ago. And, I didn't think much of it at that time, but, I was upset, and it drove me to want to do it more, because someone tells me I can't do it, I'm going to do it. That was it. And then it was the money that drove me as well, because I wanted that money to be had for me. And then it was like, when someone tells me I can't do it, that just drove me to do it. So
talk about for a second about the money side, because that's fascinating to me, because I want to have that conversation. So many people will take a look at that statement and go, well, she's greedy, right? Or it's all about the money. That's not the point, right? That is not the point. Explain why that's not the point. Explain why it doesn't make you greedy to want the money.
Because I was doing their jobs. I was doing it from this perspective that, that was back when they call them and then they didn't get the answer, and they get kicked back to me, at the office level. That was during the POTS lines and whatnot. So I would always get the calls, and then they'd always ask me to do something. They'd ask me to get the demonstration product ready. They'd ask me to do the training manual. So I always end up doing the job myself. And it's like, damn, I can do this job. And it was not the money. It was just like, I'm doing their jobs, except for not being out there talking to the clients. I'm doing it. And they knew it, and they would always be pleasant. They were nice. They go, "Oh, you're doing a great job." But I wasn't getting compensated for it.
So when you look at that aspect, and you also said you're not out there talking to the clients or the customers, do you think part of that was I don't want to put words in your mouth. What part was holding you back from talking to the clients? Because eventually, obviously, you did. Now today for AVI SPL, you're dealing directly with a client, right, a good sized client. What do you think was holding you back on the opportunity to get in front of the client then?
They were holding me back. And then that's when I approached them to say that I can do this job. I want to do the job. I've had 3 years of doing this job, at the office level, taking care of all you guys, so to speak. It's time for me. I want to go outside sales. I want to step outside. So there was nothing in me holding me back. It was they holding me back. And then I approached them a good half dozen times, and then they finally gave in and they said, okay, you can do it.
So is it the persistence? Is it, the persistence? And, well, I was gonna say the persistence and kind of the stack of evidence saying, look, I've been doing this anyway.
Yep.
You might as well let me try. You might as well let me do it. Right.
Yes, exactly. And it was just like, just I won't back down. I just didn't back down. I just kept pushing. And finally they said, okay. And it was, literally about a year after they let me go outside
Wow.
sales. And then I was successful thereafter, and exponentially thereafter with every career move that I made. But yeah, it took time for persistence, and I just wouldn't back down.
Good. When you look at women in the industry that are kind of where you were, right? Where do you see similarities in kind of facing those same obstacles that you had 20, 25 years ago? And what aspects do you think are better than when you first got started?
Comparably to now,
Yes.
you're saying? I think that it's marketably better, from where I started, tremendously. But I still see some of the challenges that they're running into. It's subtle, but it's not as prolific as when I started by any stretch. It's
Why?
much better now.
I've heard the word subtle, and there's two ways to take subtle. So I'm just going to ask you straight up. When you say it's subtle, why do you think it's subtle? Is it because you think that it's less pronounced or less common, or do you think it's because folks are finding different ways, either overtly or covertly, to discriminate?
I think it's all the above, actually. It's still out there, but there's more awareness to treat us, to treat the women better, and to be, to respect them. I do say that, and I start seeing that more and more than when they did when I started. I think we are getting more respect in the industry for sure. Because when I started, even when I did go outside sales, there was some clients that would say that I lost credibility because I was a girl, and they'd say, oh, they refer me as that girl, or I'd be guilty until proven innocent. Like the solution that I put in front of them, if it failed, I was guilty until I proved it right. And I found myself having to have a sales engineer with me each and every time, and it had to be a male. And then he would back up everything that I would just say, and then they go, okay. So that was frustrating.
Well, yeah, absolutely, it has to be, because it's this is going to sound condescending, but quote unquote needing a man to validate your design.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Talk for a second about the need for mentorship. We mentioned the fact that women that are coming up today have a different experience than you did, but there's still a need for kind of showing them and helping them walk through some of those trials, some things that they may not have ever encountered. So how do you reach out, or how do you make sure that you're available to other women in the industry to help them and kind of mentor them?
Yeah, so I do that today very often, and I pretty much, it's more of a mentality thing to say stay strong. I mean, they're smart, they know what they're doing, but I always tell them to stay the course, stay true to yourself, and it'll come. But it's really more the psychological thing that I would say. It's none of the abilities by any stretch of the means. It's just staying strong and stay the course. And then I would just say, just don't back down. And it's all more mental than anything.
Yeah. One of the aspects of these conversations that I find really interesting is there have been a handful of women who haven't had negative encounters, negative discrimination against them, and God bless them, and God bless their employers for not, right? How do we take some of those experiences and kind of plant those in other companies, right? How do we take the culture that those women have been able and been fortunate to be in, and transplant that culture? How do we transplant the idea, or at least the the mentality that has allowed them to flourish in a supportive, community?
I would say to duplicate what they're doing interject it into the businesses that they're in today. I think it's just the positive reinforcement. It's just the positive reinforcement continually, because that's really by osmosis that people will start to listen and start to learn, and everything that goes with it. So it's just staying the course. It really is. It's nothing about teaching them anything. It's just staying positive for them, and it's all mental. It's all mental.
All right. Last question here, and I preface it by saying you are not near retirement, so we're not going to, but you are going to retire someday. When you do, what do you want to look back on the AV industry, and what do you want to have seen changed?
Well, I would say that more women would come into the industry. I would like to see that. I like to see that a lot. And it has, from the 20 some years that I've been in the industry, there has been quite a bit of women. Even within AVI-SPL, there's been tremendous growth with women in the business. And I smile every time I see them on video. I smile every time I see them at the global sales meeting. And it's lovely to see them up on stage winning the awards as they deserved. So it's transitioning. And it's starting to happen. And I'm so happy to see that. I'm so delighted, because when I came into the business, there was probably maybe 5% of the women. And they were pretty much in roles, I would say, in the supporting roles. They weren't, the sales account managers. They weren't talking to clients. They were all in supportive roles.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. Rebecca Meier from AVI-SPL. Thank you, ma'am. How do people connect with you or AVI-SPL if they are so inclined?
They can reach out to me at my email at RebeccaMeier@avispl.com, or you can find me at LinkedIn. Or if anybody wants to call me, they can more than do that. If I can give my phone number, it's okay. It's 224-634-5279. Call me.
All right, there you go. Rebecca Meier from AVI-SPL. Thank you, ma'am, so much. For AVNation, go by our website, avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Find more of these interviews with fantastic women in the AV industry all the month of March. All that and more at avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv.